Hailie Deegan might have found a ride for 2023. Kyle Busch has a major sponsor announcement coming here on Thursday, and Roger Croup will drive for GMS Racing full-time in 2023. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to start off with talking about Jarrett, as it was announced on Monday morning that Jarrett will continue sponsoring Josh Berry and Junior Motorsports in 2023. They will sponsor Josh Berry for 6 races. This is really great news for Josh Berry. Josh Berry's already got multiple sponsors that are going to be working with him. Tire Pro's already confirmed to be coming back sponsor for a lot next year. And Bass Pro Shots will sponsor Josh Berry for, I think, 10 or 11 races in 2023. So Josh Berry is getting really close to being fully funded for 2023. Really exciting news for sure, and glad to say that Jarrett will sponsor Josh Berry in 2023. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Zachary Tinkle. As it was announced yesterday that Zachary Tinkle will drive for Fast Track Racing full-time in 2023, driving the number 11 car in the ARCA East Series. Fast Track Racing is a team owned by Andy Hillenberg, a legend of the ARCA ranks, a legend of the lower series ranks. Zach Tinkle is a very talented driver, also one of the most popular drivers in ARCA. He actually ended up winning the most popular driver award in ARCA in 2022. I'm wishing the best of luck for Zach Tinkle. This is a really good opportunity for him. I hope he can go out there and try to win some races. The field isn't as competitive as it used to be, but this is a really awesome opportunity for him, and I cannot wait to see what he's going to do in 2023 with Fast Track Racing. Hopefully, he can do a really good job. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Romain Grosjean. As it was announced yesterday that Romain Grosjean will be racing in the 2024 Rolex 24 in the number 63 Lamborghini LMDH car and will drive for Iron Lynx Racing. Romain Grosjean's been rumored for the last couple years and maybe wanting to actually attempt the Rolex 24. In fact, he actually was supposed to originally drive the Rolex 24, I think, last year for Wayne Taylor Racing, but that unfortunately got denied. I can't remember the guy's name who substituted for him, but he's supposed to run the Rolex 24 a couple years ago. He will be going for the overall victory. I think Romain Grosjean, really talented driver, really has done a really great job in IndyCar, solid driver in Formula One as well. Romain getting a really good opportunity here to race for the overall win in a couple of years. I think it's really exciting news. It sucks he's not going to run this year. I thought there was a chance maybe he run this year, maybe in one of the lower Lamborghini classes like GTD, but it's really exciting that Romain Grosjean will race in the 2023 Rolex 24, and we'll see what he does in 2024. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Tower Motorsports. As it was announced on Monday morning that they have announced their 2023 Rolex 24 driver lineup for the LMP2 class. And they've got a really strong lineup heading into the race. So Joseph Newgarden will drive for the team. Scott McLaughlin, Kevin Simpson, and John Farnell will be the drivers who will be driving for the team. Joseph Newgarden, 2-time IndyCar Series champion. It's been rumored that he was going to run the Rolex 24. Now it's confirmed. Scott McLaughlin, of course, V8 Supercar champion, part of the Busch Bros, and also a championship contender last year in IndyCar and one of the championship favorites in 2023. Kevin Simpson, who is a Chip Ganassi Racing development driver, which is very interesting that both Chip Ganassi Racing and Penske drivers are teaming up together. But Kevin, very talented driver. And then John Farnell, who, of course, was the LMP2 champion, I believe, last year. This is a really strong combination, a combination that I really think will be threats to overall go out there and win. I think it's going to be a really strong combination going into next year. And really excited to see what Tower Motorsports can do in 2023. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Brian Doza. It was announced all the way back this weekend that Brian Doza will be returning to FDNY Racing in 2023 at Daytona International Raceway. FDNY Racing is one of the OG original organizations. In fact, they're the only organization that has been racing every single year since the beginning of the Camping World Truck Series, or the Craftsman Truck Series for that matter. So they'll be entering in 2023 at Daytona. The goal for them is, of course, to make the race. There's going to be a lot of people trying to make that race. I would not be shocked if we see around 50 to 55 cars maybe enter the Truck Series race, which that means a lot of people are going to be going home, and we've been seeing more and more entries announced as we get closer to Daytona. We're about 70 days away from that. But in all seriousness and all honesty, good to see that Brian Doza is returning to the organization in 2023, and hopefully he'll do a really good job next season. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about GMS Racing. We'll get into the major announcement about GMS here in a little bit, but GMS also on the day of their big announcement announced their 2023 crew chief lineup. So for the 23 truck, was driven by Grant and Finger, Jeff Hensley will be returning to crew chief for Grant. For the 24 truck, which gets to the driver that in a short period of time, Chad Walter will be the crew chief for the 24. And for Daniel Dye, who's driving the 43 truck next season, Travis Sharp, who's been in the industry for a very long time, will be the crew chief. You got a really strong driver / crew chief combinations and a really strong lineup in that front and 3 really good crew chiefs working together. It's going to be really exciting to see what GMS Racing can do next season, and really exciting to see that is going to be GMS Racing's lineup for 2023. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about IndyCar. Now, it was announced yesterday the IndyCar will move forward in 2024 with current 2.2-liter V6 engines rather than adopting the 2.4-liter engines that they were going to run in the future. Now, why has IndyCar done this? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, apparently production delays had been a thing. This is, of course, reported by Nathan Brown, that there have been production delays. But another reason, there's some rumors and rumors that the manufacturers were only going to be giving the teams 12 engines altogether for each manufacturer. So you were only going to have 24 cars entered. That is not good news at all that was a major conversation, because if you've only got 24 cars on the field throughout the season, consider we've been getting 27, 28 car fields in 2022. That would have been really disappointing news. So I can't really blame them because they do want to have larger entry fields. That being said, though, it's kind of disappointing they can't get more people to enter these races. I think it's just a little bit disappointing, in my opinion, and the fact they're having trouble with this is a really sad situation. The sad state of affairs is what IndyCar's kind of become. IndyCar needs to start focusing on making changes. They're trying to make changes with some of their department when it comes to their marketing department, which they're making some changes over there. They got someone else that's coming in there, which I think is really important. They have someone come in there and fix those issues. But the fact that they're trying to be status quo is a little disappointing, in my opinion. I'm a little frustrated about that. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Joe Gibbs Racing and Sam Hunt Racing. As it was basically reported by Davey Siegel that Joe Gibbs Racing and Sam Hunt Racing are going to be announcing their 2023 driver lineups tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, we do know one of the drivers who will be driving for Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity. That is Sammy Smith. We'll talk about him here really, really shortly. But the rest of the lineups are going to be revealed. For Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity Series lineup, I anticipate that they are going to have 3 cars in their lineup in 2023. The second entry, which is the number 19, I anticipate that is going to be end up driven by John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek has been linked to Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity Series program. Plus, in 2022, he made a ton of starts with the Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity Series team. It has some really solid sets. Did not win, but was up front in every single one of those races. And in 2021, he actually won with Joe Gibbs Racing at Texas Motor Speedway. Plus, John Hunter is a really talented driver, and I think long term he's going to end up in the Cup Series with Joe Gibbs Racing. The other entry could be an entry mix of multiple drivers like a Trevor Bayne, perhaps. Maybe we get someone else and we get a bunch of the Cup Series drivers running it like Ty Gibbs, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell. That's probably what is going to happen there. Now let's talk about Sam Hunt Racing. Sam Hunt Racing's had some rumored drivers. I've heard Ryan Vargas' name out of nowhere thrown in the conversation for that. I would also think maybe Trevor Bayne could be considered for that. Maybe Ryan Truex. Who knows at this point with Sam Hunt Racing, but these will be revealed here on the channel. We'll talk about that either tomorrow on the channel or on Friday. But when we do get those announcements, we'll talk about that. Pretty big news for sure around Joe Gibbs Racing. And hopefully we'll see some really good drivers in the Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity Series lineup in 2023. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Dean Thompson. As it was announced on Monday morning that Dean Thompson will be joining Tricon Garage in 2023 on a full-time basis, driving the number 5 truck. Dean Thompson last year and the last couple years has driven for Nice Motorsports in the number 40 truck. And let's be honest, Dean Thompson's numbers have not been very impressive. He failed to finish in the top 10 in a single race in the Truck Series, which is really, really disappointing. But here's what I'll say about Dean Thompson. I'm not completely giving up on Dean Thompson at this particular moment, and here's why. I think while Carson Hocevar is a really talented driver, I think Nice Motorsports does put a lot of focus on Carson Hocevar because Carson is a really talented driver, so they put a lot of focus on there. I think that they have too many trucks in their stable, and I think that does play a factor why the rest of the Nice Motorsports trucks do struggle. So this is a great opportunity. That being said, I hope that he can really step up the play because he's going to have to step up the play because he's going to essentially what Kyle Busch Motorsports was. Because remember, Tri-Car Garage brought a lot of the Kyle Busch Motorsports stuff because David Gilman Racing is a Toyota team now, and basically they are a team that I think wants to really improve. But their lineup next year is basically they're going to have 5 trucks next year. So the one truck which has not had anybody confirmed for that ride at this particular moment, the Gray brothers, Tanner Gray in the 15, Taylor Gray in the 17, Dean Thompson now in the number 5 truck, and then, of course, Corey Heim in the 11. I think that Corey Heim will be the strongest at the team next year just because Corey Heim has been a Toyota driver for a while, plus I think he is a really, really good driver. And then, obviously, the other drivers in the organization that are going to be there. So, I hope that Dean Thompson can step up to the plate next year and do as good as he can, but I'm not sure how he'll do. But we're not giving up on Dean Thompson yet. Hopefully, he can improve. Also, around Nice Motorsports, we're going to be announcing their plans in the not-so-distant future. We know some teams might be shutting down in the future. They're not one of them at the moment, but good to see that we'll at least know about Nice Motorsports' future in the not-so-distant future, and we'll talk about that when that is officially revealed. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, is we're talking about Bill McAnally Racing and McAnally Hilgeman Racing. As yesterday, they revealed their 2023 driver lineup, and there's some big shockers right here. So, Christian Eckes, who drove for Thorsport Racing in the number 98 truck, will leave Thorsport Racing and drive the number 19 for McAnally Hilgeman Racing. Jake Garcia, who made a ton of select starts for the team, will also drive their team in the number 35 truck. That means that Derek Kraus and Colby Howard will not return to McAnally Hilgeman Racing. That actually was confirmed that Colby Howard was going to be leaving, but Derek Kraus is now officially out of McAnally Hilgeman Racing. Let's talk about this lineup just a little bit. Before I do, Jay Garcia will have to have a substitute driver at Daytona as he does not turn 18 until the morning of the Las Vegas race. So he's going to be running full-time except one race. So someone will probably substitute for him, but it will not be Derek Kraus. Now, McAnally Hilgeman Racing will also potentially run a third truck in select race in 2023. Probably some of their drivers in the ARCA West Series at this current moment. So let's talk about this lineup. Jake Garcia, start with him. Very underrated driver, had some decent runs last year. The team did end up DNQing for one of the races, but that was due to rain that kind of caused that. But when he ran it in the truck series, he did very solid. So I think Jake Garcia will have a pretty good year with the team. Now let's talk about Christian Eckes. I think this is the big shocker for me. I thought Derek Kraus was going to stay in the 19 truck, to be honest with you. So this, I think, is a really good pickup for the team. Christian Eckes had a lot of strong runs last year with Thorsport. Nearly made it to the championship was contending for wins. I was at one of the races where he actually nearly won, which was Gateway, was up front in that race and contending for the victory and led a lot of laps as well. And in 2021, he did win with Thorsport Racing at Las Vegas to give him the opportunity to drive full-time with the team. So I think this is a great pickup. I think Christian Eckes has a really strong chance of making the playoffs. We've seen that truck nearly make the playoffs the last couple of seasons, so I think there's a good chance he could win a race with the team because Derek Kraus is up front in a lot of races, and I think Christian will do a really good job. But that leaves a big question around is where Colby Howard and Derek Kraus could end up. I can see Derek Kraus at any organization, to be honest. Maybe he goes to Tory Racing. There's a ride over there currently at the moment. There's other organizations like a Nice Motorsports, perhaps, and there's maybe other teams that could be available down the road. But I think Derek Kraus will find a ride for 2023. He's a very talented driver. Yes, he can be a little bit over-aggressive and can be reckless at times. But I think that Derek Kraus will be able to find a ride. Same for Colby Howard. Colby Howard's a very underrated driver. He kind of got screwed out of a lot of great runs last year, including at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Indianapolis Raceway Park. Got kind of screwed out over there. But I will say that I think when you look at these drivers, I think that they are going to be very, very talented, and I think that they will find rides. I think McAnally Hilgeman is a team that is set for the future, and I think this is a very solid lineup going into 2023, and hopefully we'll see this team do really good next season. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Julio Castroneves. Now, we talked about this on the channel a couple days ago, really for the last week. The Julio Castroneves is in the running to potentially run the 2023 Daytona 500. Well, Julio Cashnebas was interviewed, I think, by Jim Utter at motorsports.com, and he opened up about the situation around the 2023 Daytona 500 hopes. He says that nothing has been finalized so far for the 2023 Daytona 500, but he hopes to hear something in the next couple of weeks. In fact, he said the next 2 weeks he's hoping to hear something. So by the end of next week, he's hoping to have some news around that. There are 2 teams that are currently in the running at the moment for Julio Cashnebas to run the Daytona 500. The first team that's currently running is a Project 91 car for Trackhouse Racing. Trackhouse said they're going to enter a third car for Multi Race in 2023 to goals around 6 to 8 races, and international drivers are the drivers they're looking at for this car. The car made its debut with Kimi Räikkönen at Watkins Glen, so this is one of the rides that could be potentially available for Julio Castroneves. The other ride that is currently potentially available for Julio Castroneves is the Money Team Racing. This past weekend, one of the higher-ups at the Money Team Racing, Walt Agamodi, he basically confirmed to Joseph Strigley and TobyChristie.com, they basically confirmed that they have actually spoken to Julio Castroneves and shown interest in Julio Castroneves to run the Daytona 500. So that is where he can end up running for the 2023 Daytona 500. Now, they also do note in the article that Don Hawk has said from the motorsports.com article, he does know that they could run a crown jewel event. So it is possible Julio Castroneves could run the Coke 600 and do the double. As he's noted that he would maybe be able to do that, maybe run Meyershank Racing in that race, and then maybe run Project 91 in the double, which is very, very possible as well. But I hope they're able to find a way to get Julio Castroneves the available funding and be able to run the Daytona 500. We hope to know very, very soon. We're getting close to the end of the year, so hopefully before the end of the year we hear some news around Julio Castroneves on which race he's going to run, whether it is the Daytona 500, the Coke 600, or the Southern 500. Who knows at this point, but hopefully we'll know some news around Julio Castroneves in the not-so-distant future. It's kind of disappointing. It sounds like it's not 100% confirmed because Castroneves run the Daytona 500. Needs to happen. He's interested in running. He wants to run NASCAR. He's wanted to run it really for a long time, and hopefully he's able to find a sponsorship and funding able to run. He's got Sirius XM that can easily sponsor him, which I think is not an issue, but hopefully they're able to find a way to get the funding and availability on that front. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Sammy Smith. As it was announced yesterday that Sammy Smith will be driving full-time for Joe Gibbs Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2023, driving the number 18 car. All the sponsors that sponsor Sammy Smith in 2023 will sponsor him in 2023. This also includes Pilot Flying J and the other companies that sponsor him in 2022. Sammy Smith is coming off a very strong year in the ARCA West and ARCA East series, and also, of course, in main ARCA, winning a ton of races in all those respective series, and race part-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2023 and not 22 in 9 races, scoring 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s. But Sammy Smith ran a lot better in those races than where the finish showed, including at Martinsville, where he was up front contending for the victory, but got taken out by his teammates Ty Gibbs and Brandon Jones. That caused him to finish near the back of the pack when he could have honestly won. I remember back at Watkins Glen where he ended up finishing third and was up front in that race as well. Sammy Smith is a very, very talented driver, and I think this is a fantastic opportunity for Sammy. I think with him being only 18, I know he's only 18 years old, but look how Ty Gibbs did at 18. He did really good in the Xfinity Series. He's already a champion at this particular point. He ran part-time last year and did a really great job. Sammy Smith will be looking to win a lot of races next year and be a championship threat. And going into next year, I think Sammy Smith will be an actual legitimate threat for the Xfinity Series championship. Now, he's going to be competing against a lot of really talented guys like Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier, Cole Custer, Riley Herbst, you name it. There's a lot of drivers he's going to be competing against for that NASCAR Xfinity Series championship. But he's a really talented driver, and I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to be talking about him potentially making select Cup Series starts at a very young age. Because I think he's as good as Ty Gibbs. I think he's a really talented driver, winning a lot of races. He nearly won the Snowball Derby here this past week. He finished second in that. And Sammy Smith, I think, is going to be a major, major shot to go out there and win next year. So what are my predictions for Sammy Smith going into 2023? Well, I think Sammy Smith's going to win at least 3 to 4 races next year in Xfinity. I didn't know people want me to give him like 8 or 9 victories. I'm going to pump the brakes on him giving him like 8 or 9 victories. But I think 3 to 4 victories should be the goal for Sammy Smith going into next year. And the goal for him is to make the championship 2024. I think the competition is a little bit easier for Sammy Smith this year because you're not going to have Justin Allgaier, AJ Allmendinger, and Ty Gibbs. Well, Noah Gragson, AJ Allmendinger, Ty Gibbs next year because those were the three strongest drivers last season. And you are not going to have those guys. But like I said, you're going to have a lot of tough competition still. Chandler Smith's coming up, of course, in 2023 to drive his 16 car for Kaulig Racing. So you're going to have a really strong combination of drivers coming up. And the guys that are leaving, they're getting replaced by really talented drivers. And then, of course, Brandon Jones, who will be driving the number 9 car for Junior Motorsports. He's going to be a really great acquisition to, I think, Junior Motorsports being a championship threat as well. I expect Sammy Smith to be really good, though, 3 to 4 victories, and I think Sammy Smith will be very fun to watch in 2023. Cannot wait to see what happens, and happy to see that Sammy Smith will be joining Joe Gibbs Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2023. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the first of 3 major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Roger Carruth. As it was officially announced yesterday that Roger Carruth will drive the 24 for GMS Racing in 2023, with Wendell Scott Foundation sponsoring him for the whole entire season. Roger Carruth has been rumored for the last week or two that he would be driving this car. It was actually confirmed last week, I think last Tuesday or Wednesday. It was confirmed that Roger Carruth will be driving full-time for GMS Racing. This is a very, very strong and a great opportunity for Roger Carruth. You look at how Roger Carruth has performed in his select starts. Last year in the Truck Series, didn't have the greatest results. I don't think he scored a top 10, but went to his debut, I think, at Gateway, and ended up finishing 11th. And he was up front a lot of his Truck Series races, but got caught up in messes that he should not have been caught up in. I remember at Phoenix where he's up in the front, contending for top 10 points, even the top 5, but got taken out by multiple drivers in that race, including Lane Riggs, who was unfortunately involved in one of those crashes. He also ran part-time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series last season, and he started the year off not on the best note, but as the year progressed and the more experience he got, the better he became. And he had 3 top 20 finishes in the last few races he ran this past season. So he really, really improved. He also, of course, ran full-time in ARCA and actually led the points for the majority of the year, but got beat by his teammate Nick Sanchez and then his rival, this teammate in the Truck Series this year, Daniel Dye. That's another big thing. Roger's going to be joining a really good, talented number of drivers. He'll be joining Grant Enfinger, who's had a lot of experience with GMS Racing, who got 1 or 2 wins last year in the Camping World Truck Series. And I expect Roger will be able to lean on Grant Enfinger a lot next year. And then, of course, you're going to have Daniel Dye, who is going to be a teammate to his as well. Roger has a lot of talent, and he actually knows he's not even had 100 stock car racing starts, and the fact he's not even had 100 stock car racing starts, and just a few years ago was on iRacing doing what he was doing, and to go from iRacing just 3 or 4 years ago to now being full-time in the Camping World Truck Series really knows how quickly he's learned and adapted and how much talent he really, really has. I think that Roger going into 2023, you have to have some pretty decent expectations for him. I'm not expecting Roger Carruth to win the championship this year, even though, next year I should say, even though I think Roger will be really good next year. I don't see him winning the championship, but I think going into 2023, I really think that Roger Carruth can win a couple races next year with that 24 truck. I think Chad Walter is a very solid crew chief. He'll do a really good job helping him out there. And he'll be able to lean on Grant Enfinger, who's been a championship threat throughout his career. And I think he'll do a really good job going into next year, really trying to help out on those areas. As like I said, for Roger, the goal is to make the playoffs next year and get a couple victories, which I think is really possible. He did have some really, really strong runs last year in 2022, and I think going into 2023, you have to be really excited about this GMS lineup because GMS Racing in 2023, Grant Enfinger, Daniel Dye, who I think will be an outside championship threat, and Roger Carruth, who I think will be a legit playoff contender heading into 2023. A lot of exciting news around Roger. Really also good that he'll be working with Jimmy Johnson as well, which I think really will help him out. Jimmy can be a really good driving coach for him as well to help out with that group. So really exciting news for sure around Roger Carruth. I cannot wait to see what he'll be able to do next year and excited to see that he'll be joining the GMS Racing family in 2023. I expect pretty big things from him and really exciting stuff around Roger Carruth heading into the 2023 season. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next major story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Busch. As there was a teaser that came out from Rich Schultz Racing yesterday talking about Kyle Busch around a bunch of things. Save the date. So tomorrow, December 8th, 2022, will be the biggest announcement for Kyle Busch so far outside of his announcement of him going to Rich Schultz Racing. This is a big announcement, and here is why. So we will be getting not only the merchandise for Rich Schultz Racing for Kyle Busch, but we're also going to be getting the sponsorship that Kyle Busch is going to be sponsored with for 2023. Now, it's already been confirmed that Lenovo is going to sponsor Kyle Busch in 2023, but we don't know the other sponsors that are going to sponsor Kyle Busch. First, let's talk about the merchandise. I think the merchandise will be very similar to what you see there. I think that's going to be the merchandise very similar to what Chase Elliott does with the D9 sponsorship. I think that is going to be the sponsorship with the D8 sponsorship is potentially what they are going to end up using for Kyle Busch. Let's talk about some of the potential sponsors that could sponsor Kyle Busch in 2023. Obviously, there's a lot of rumors that Cheddar's is going to continue sponsoring Rich Schultz Racing next year because they're not sponsoring Tyler Reddick in 2023. They'll be staying likely with Richard Childress Racing. I think Realtree, which has been a sponsor with the Rich Schultz Racing brand, will be one of Kyle Busch's sponsors as well. I think Alsco is going to sponsor Kyle Busch as well in 2023. And I think there's going to be a couple new additions for Kyle Busch next year. First one being Hot Wheels. Hot Wheels has sponsored Rich Schultz Racing in the past. They sponsored Rich Schultz Racing in 2021. So I think there's a good chance that they'll sponsor Kyle Busch. And then Sling. Remember, there's been some rumblings about Sling sponsoring Kyle Busch. This could be a potential sponsor that Kyle Busch has for 2023. And I think Sling has to be looked at as a potential sponsor that they're going to use for Kyle Busch in 2023. Because, of course, Lefty's already got a car designed for that, also known as Noah Sweet. They've got a car already designed for that. So why would you have a car designed if you're not going to use that as a sponsor? Though sometimes people do bring up concepts. But why is this a big deal? Well, we've heard from Joe Gibbs Racing for a long time, but they basically were having a lot of problems finding sponsorship for Kyle Busch. The fact that we already know one of the sponsors is going to be Lenovo, and the fact that we already know that we do know at this point that we do know that Kyle Busch basically might already have sponsors confirmed is going to show the issues when it comes to Joe Gibbs Racing in their department, trying to get acclimated with sponsors. But granted, probably Rich Schultz Racing sponsorship is a lot cheaper than probably Joe Gibbs Racing sponsorship, so it's probably a little bit easier. But I look at next year going to 2023 for Kyle Busch, and I think it's going to be a big year for Kyle Busch. He's already been winning out there at COTA. He's already shown that he really wants to go out there and I think win a championship. And you look at history, 2015 won the championship, 2019 won the championship. Could he win the 2023 championship? Maybe. Who knows at this point. But we're going to get more details on that tomorrow, what the sponsorship is and everything. And it's a pretty big deal. And we're probably going to cover on the channel here either tomorrow on the channel or we'll cover it on Friday later this week. A lot of great stuff to talk about and great to see that we'll be hearing more about Kyle Busch and his sponsorship adventures and everything for 2023 here very, very soon. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we are talking about Hailie Deegan. As it sounds like she may have found her ride for 2023. Hailie Deegan has been one of the biggest names in the silly season over the last couple weeks because, of course, she will not be returning to the Tricon Garage in 2023 as they were originally David Gillen Racing. She will be leaving that team as that team has become a Toyota brand, and she is a Ford driver. So we've been following the story for the last weeks because we've been following where she could end up going. We thought maybe she'd be going to maybe Stewart Haas Racing in 2023 in the Xfinity Series, but that unfortunately got denied as Hailie, that team will have Cole Custer in the 00 and Riley Herbst in the 98 car. So, okay, what other rides could be available? Maybe SS Greenlight Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. That could be a possibility for part-time, but it sounds like that will not be a full-time entry for her in 2023. Then we thought about the truck series, and in Front Row Motorsports with the team, we thought maybe they expand to a 2-truck operation for Hailie Deegan, and that could have been a possibility. But that does not sound like to be the case. So where will she end up? Enter Thorsport Racing. Very recently, it was reported from RacingBoys.com and Crew Chief's Corner in the last few weeks that it sounds like that Thorsport Racing is going to be switching back to Ford in 2023, and Hailie Deegan is going to drive the 98 truck for Thorsport Racing in 2023. Now, a lot of people are really kind of skeptical on this because we've seen some of the reports on Crew Chief's Corner, Racing Boys in the past, but it sounds like this is becoming more and more likely as the days go on. Again, it's not confirmed at this point, but it sounds very likely that Hailie Deegan is going to end up at Thorsport Racing. Now, if you compare Thorsport Racing to DGR Racing, they are a much better organization. Should be going into a truck that was really fast last year, and I think a lot of it does help that 98 trucks basically open at this point. But that team was very solid last year and nearly made it to the championship four. Hailie Deegan, if she goes to Thorsport Racing, which I think is expected at this point, if she truly does go to Thorsport Racing, she is going to be expected to step up. But I also think if you're in her position, you do need to get some Xfinity Series starts under your belt. You look how well she did in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in her first start. She ended up finishing 13th and ran top 20 all day, which is what you're supposed to do. And she had a lot of respect for the drivers and how clean they raced her. And I think she had a lot of respect for that. And in the Truck Series, she's been kind of a little bit mediocre. Let's be honest. Hailie Deegan in the Truck Series has been very, very bad. DGR Racing Women, I'll say, was not very good. But you got to run as well as you can. Ryan Preece did get a couple wins with that team, and Taylor Gray did have some solid runs, though I will say DGR Racing was not the fastest organization in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Thorsport Racing, on the other hand, they are a much faster organization. They're a championship caliber team. They nearly won the championship this year with Ty Majeski and Ben Rhodes, and of course they got beat by Zane Smith with Front Row, but they are a really good team. And then, of course, I have to think, well, didn't Toyota a few months ago say they were going to support Thorsport Racing? Well, while they did say that, there's probably been things that have been changed. And Thorsport Racing has changed manufacturers so much in the last couple years. They originally a Chevy team. Then around 2015, they switched to 2014, 2015, they switched to Toyota. Then they switched back to Ford in 2018. And in this past year, they switched back to Toyota, and now it sounds like they're going to be a 4 team once again in 2023. So they keep switching manufacturers left, right, and center, and that is going to be something we're going to have to watch. Like Bill Davis Racing did in the Cup Series, sounds like they're going to be switching over to a Chevy team, and not Chevy team, a Ford team next season, which is where Hailie Deegan comes in. And Hailie Deegan will be in a much faster truck, plus she brings sponsorship and funding. But she will have to step up next year in 2023 if she truly is going to Thorsport Racing. She's going to have to step it up to the plate because this is a championship caliber ride. Ty Majeski won a couple races, 2 races last year. And then, of course, Ben Rhodes did win a race last year. And then Matt Crafton was very solid last season. And then, of course, Christian Eckes was solid as well. They all made the playoffs last year. So her goal going to 2023 is to try to win races and be more competitive and stay out of trouble and get a better average finish and make the playoffs. I know it sounds crazy to say, but this is Thorsport Racing. You're going to be expected to contend for a playoff position, and you're going to be expected to be up front in a lot of races. So in 2023, Hailie Deegan is really going to have to step it up if she is going to Thorsport Racing. She is going to have to step it up. But I do hope going into next year, she does get some select Xfinity Series starts. Maybe Thorsport partners up at SHR and gives her an opportunity at SS Greenlight Racing to run a few select races with the sponsorship he has. Because, again, she did really good in Xfinity in her first start. So I think long-term they're going to move her up full-time to Xfinity. And I think that they should have done that this year. But this is a good plan B for her. I think this is one of the fastest organizations and helps for development a little bit as well because Thorsport's kind of part of that Toyota TRD pipeline, but they're not really part of that TRD pipeline. So I think, though, this is a really great opportunity for Hailie Deegan going into 2023 if she truly is going to Thorsport Racing. And you do have to be excited if you are a Thorsport Racing fan and a Hailie Deegan fan as well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but it sounds like Hailie Deegan may be headed to Thorsport Racing in 2023, and that news should be coming very, very soon. So that is going to be it for today's long NASCAR news and motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel, notifications on so you're notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links are below over that, and combo your thoughts on today's video. How do you think Hailie Deegan is going to perform with Thorsport Racing in 2023? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Kyle Busch's sponsorship announcement, and do you think that what sponsors will he have? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, I should have a team preview out on the channel around Stuart Haas Racing. That's probably going to be the team preview I'm going to be doing on the channel tomorrow. And then on Friday, we should have a catch-up NASCAR news video. Saturday, we may be taking an early look at the 2023 Cup Series lineup, or we might be doing the Xfinity Series predictions on the channel. And then on Sunday, we probably might be doing another team preview or some other type of content, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. I've also got some videos from yesterday you should go check out. I've got a Kevin Harvick video that I talk about if he'll retire or not. We might have a video on the top 5 drivers who could retire at the end of 2023. That might be dropping on the channel here maybe this weekend. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.